Welcome, everyone, to the 30-minute Midas touch from beautiful Dyersburg, Tennessee at the Herb Welsh WrestlePlex. Now, here is pound for pound and inch for inch, the best of the best in professional wrestling today. A wrestling genius worth his weight in gold. The Golden Boy, Greg Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 30-minute Midas touch. I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, and with me as always is my co-host, the Lone Musketeer, Mark Tipton.
The Lone Musketeer. My. Well, I don't know that I've ever seen myself as a lone wolf. I got that on the brain. I just saw Baron Corbin on television as I was reviewing some of the week's matches.
I'm sorry.
Well, I have not quite, they say some guys are an acquired taste. He is one I've not yet acquired, but I'm trying to be fair.
The guacamole of professional wrestling, Baron Corbin.
I don't know he would want to promote himself in that fashion, but right. I certainly could see it being done that way. This week, we've kind of reached another milestone. This is, I believe, episode 20 of the 30-Minute Midas Touch podcast with the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. And so it became another point to reach out to the members of the audience, those who listen to our podcast on the various platforms that we're on, and just see if they have any questions they would like to ask directly to you. We have a few that I would like to go over with you and give you a chance to expound upon and see how you react.
Sounds great. Let's rock and roll, as they say.
All right. I think right off the top, we could just start with a very almost philosophical kind of question. The question was asked by one listener that says, you've had a long career, and during the course of that career, at this point, what kind of things are it that keep you motivated to keep going? You've obviously endured injuries, all the trials that go along with being a professional wrestler. What is it that keeps you going in your career?
For me personally, it's, being, like you said, being so long in the business and still being able to perform at a certain level. I pride myself, I turned 40 in June, and there's not many 40-year-olds that are out there wrestling like I do. We wrestle at least twice a week. We do about 125 shows a year, so I'm still in the thick of it, So, for me, it's that, and also, wrestling, I can sit here and we can talk about wrestling theory, and I can tell you about shine and heat and comeback and finish, and I can go over all the ins and outs with you, but at the end of the day, you really need on-the-job training. I need to be in the ring with a crowd to really teach some things. Mm-hmm. You understand? It's almost impossible to teach them without. So it's you have to be in ring, and obviously to be in ring, I have to still be active, right? So there's a lot of these things that I learned from the Tracy Smotherses and the Jerry Lynn's and all the guys that were the last group of guys that actually work a legitimate territory. You know what I mean? A lot of those things are going to die off if we don't pass them on. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pass that on to the next generation. So, in 10, 15, 20 years, if I'm not wrestling, then obviously we have someone else pulling that weight, and we're heading the cart in the right direction as far as professional wrestling goes. All right,
I do appreciate that. That's a very, very noble and lofty, somewhat overwhelming idea that you're taking on, that you're trying to keep on the whole idea of professional wrestling, because it's something you're concerned about is being lost. This is not a concept that I haven't heard echoed in other places.
Yeah, and you look at professional wrestling, is all the things that made us professional wrestling and made us great are slowly being chipped away at. And we talk about it every week on the show. The further we get away from professional wrestling, the harder it is to get back. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get back as close as we can. So, like I said, here in Pro Wrestling Mid-South, we are as old school as it comes. You know what I mean? If you hit a pile driver in Pro Wrestling Mid-South, then that guy is done. Not just done, he's out of action for months at a time. You understand? And that's the world we've created. And then people believe it. And that's why I'll say to my last dying breath that this old school stuff still works. I just watched Christian Cage versus Frankie Kazarian. You know what I mean? Old school match. Everyone's raving about it. Christian still got it, that kind of thing. It's old school stuff. It's just good old fashioned wrestling / storytelling.
All right. A little bit along a kind of a follow-up question on the beginning one is, what, if anything, do you want to accomplish in your career? Now, this may be defined in championships or someone you want to wrestle, or that could go in a lot of directions.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Like, for me, of course, I always wanted to be the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. And I got to wrestle for it on several occasions, but never got the brass ring, as they say. That was something I always wanted. I seriously doubt that'll ever happen now, considering the ones in charge of decision making currently.
Wrestling politics,
as we've been over many times before. I've been very vocal about how I don't think a garage band singer should be running the 3 most historic letters in professional wrestling history. So the likelihood of me being able to do something with them is few and far between. So obviously not that. Obviously, another goal of mine for many years was Japan. I wanted to wrestle in Japan. I wanted to test my mettle over there. I had an opportunity, and it got taken out from under me, because, somebody, once again, wrestling politics. I was all set and ready to go, and then, they pulled the rug out from under me, and, I wasn't on that tour, so it is what it is. I'd like to maybe get back there someday and do something of merit. Other than that, though, there's really just, like I said, growing pro wrestling Mid-South, growing this old school mentality that we're talking about, so it lasts for generations and generations, so it's not lost in the shuffle of everything that's going on now. So,
all right. Well, you kind of spurred a couple of things. Well, let me finish up these questions, then we may come back to some of those subjects. I want to make sure and give the members of the audience an opportunity to be sure they get their questions in. Let me see. Well, we had mentioned Christian. You mentioned you just watched a match of his. He is the subject of another of the questions that came up that was sent in by a listener, and this was someone who is he acknowledged himself as a fan of Christian, and listed off some of his accomplishments, which are quite a few, and he's had an accomplished career inside and outside of the WWE. And his question was, if his run, so to say, in AEW is successful and really pans out well, could it be possible to say that he might surpass Edge as far as being... Because, and let's be fair, many people have viewed Christian as kind of being in the shadow of Edge because of their long-term relationship, their childhood friends and so forth. And in the WWE, Christian never quite achieved the heights that Edge did. So this listener saying, hey, if he has a good run here, do you think you could see him surpassing Edge in your mind?
I don't think he can surpass Edge as far as, Edge is a legitimate, main event guy. You understand? Like Christian, like we said before, Christian, I love Christian. He's a fabulous worker, probably one of the most underrated, underappreciated guys of the last 30 years. But he's not the game-changing main event star that they tried to make him out to be when he was going to AEW. So Edge is always going to have the nod in that sense because Edge is a bona fide main event guy, and he proved that. As far as in-ring goes, I think Christian is actually better than Edge. As far as actual, I don't know how to explain this. He's more of a natural movement, has more natural movement in the ring than Edge does. But Edge, of course, has done wonders with everything that he's got, and of course, his mind for the business is second to none too. So, I don't think Christian could ever really reach that level where Edge is on, just because he's become, like I said, that main event iconic kind of thing. especially with the coming back like he did. That moment at the Rumble will live on forever as one of the best moments in Rumble history. You know what I mean? Because it was such a shock to everybody. So yeah, I still have to give the nod to Edge on all that.
Okay, well, your answer kind of leads me into one of the other questions, at least in my mind, and let you correct me if I'm wrong is my interpretation. As you were talking about and describing and kind of comparing and contrasting Edge and Christian, it sounded like, and I have heard other professional wrestlers say things along this line and praise Christian for his in-ring, his being a technician, I suppose is the way to approach it. I have heard that before. And one of the other questions was, in your opinion, what was more important? The ring work, and this was a very philosophical question, but I'm going to use Edge and Christian to kind of lead into it. What is more important ultimately in the success of a professional wrestler? Is it the ring work or the character or persona that he portrays in the ring? And Edge and Christian might kind of lay into that.
Yeah, the gimmick or the character is going to be more important because, like, here I am today, like, you know, I've always been considered a very technical wrestling guy too, but I've also been considered a guy that had charisma and had, you know, the ability to talk and all those kind of things, right? So if you sat me down and said, okay, listen, you know, you can only have one of these things now. You can either be a great technical in-ring performer or you can be a great character in the business. I would go with great character because, and I tell this to my students, the ability to talk is the number one ability in professional wrestling because if you can talk, you can do any job. You understand? You can wrestle, obviously, but you can be a commentator. It's not just being able to talk on a microphone either. It's being able to, you know, relay your message like we're doing on this podcast. Like, and especially when you're a trainer and things like that, you're trying to relay messages and trying to get guys to do things that their body's not used to doing. You know what I mean? When you're a booker, you know, you're talking talent into, hey, you know, this is the best course of action for the company. This, and this. It's the ability to talk. The doors are open wide for you. As to where if you're a great technical wrestler, okay, you're gonna have a great technical wrestling match, probably middle of the card too. You understand? So it's kind of like, what do you do? You know. So for me, it's always going to be character because we're such a character-driven business. You know, the more people care about the character, they could care less about what the moves they do. You know what I mean? Like, if we go back and look in history, some of the greatest professional wrestlers, they really only had about 10 things in their arsenal. You know, if we go back and look at it, like the flares and the funks and the stuff like that. If you start actually sitting in your head going, what moves did I see him do in 30 years? You know what I mean? It ends up being about like 10 moves that they did consistently, right? So it's never been about moves, even though a lot of people like to say it is now, but it's always been about character.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind me kind of droning on about this, I do, and I'm hoping the listeners kind of view this the way I do. The way I try to understand it is I usually look for analogies. I have recently heard Mark Henry, among others, talk about Christian's ability to put together matches, yeah. and you know, and praise him in saying that the Undertaker would listen to what Christian had to say, among other things. I heard him say that. Whereas Edge, I'm watching him on television. I just watched him on SmackDown. And I realized that since the Rumble, we're talking about his character and persona, that moment at the Rumble, he comes back. I'm thrilled, you know, I'm excited, I'm all behind him. And now, in the matter of a few weeks, this same guy who I was just absolutely behind 100% to become the Universal Champion, now I have found myself absolutely despising this man and the way he's portrayed himself on SmackDown. Is that a guy who's demonstrating a way to connect with the audience through his character?
Yeah. Like Edge, like I said, you can turn off and on. You know, when you're good at your job, you can tell whatever story needs to be told. I personally would much like you. I would much rather see him as the babyface in that scenario, but he's not. So he's playing the middle of the road, you know, and like I said, I don't agree with it, but that's the business they're doing. So yeah, of course.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, let me get one one other question that was more directed at you personally. You had mentioned about wrestling for the NWA World Title, and that was the subject of one of the questions. And this will be an opportunity for you to kind of expound on it. Talk about the opportunities you had, what it meant to you, and things along that line. Because obviously it's a very important match for you, and a chance to really show what you are as a professional wrestler.
Yeah. I mean, actually, when we first opened NWA Mid-South, the very first event we had actually was me versus Rob Conway for the NWA World's Heavyweight title, which was a huge deal for me, obviously, because, like I said, I'd long wanted to be the world champion, wanted to get in the thick of things, that kind of thing. So just to have the opportunity to wrestle for that championship, that particular championship, was a dream come true for me from a childhood standpoint. Of course, I wanted, getting into the kind of behind the scenes and how the sausage is made kind of thing. That night, I actually wanted to do a finish where it looked like I won the title, and then the referee came and restarted the match, and then I lost. So I wanted that 30 seconds where it looked like I was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. But Conway ex-nayed that, and obviously, I understand his perspective on it, especially the office's perspective. They could do that, and then you could just edit it out, the aftermath, and everybody just think I'm the champion, and then you could do whatever, right? It'd be bad. I completely understand. I thought I was a little more trusted, that I wouldn't do business like that. You understand? So it is what it is. I understand their point, but at the same time, I still wanted to do that, right? So then the next time I wrestled for the NWA World's Heavyweight title was actually against Jack Stane in Nashville. And I went to do this for Nashville. And at the time, I was the NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, and he was the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. And I get to this company, and they tell me that they want Jack Stane to beat me in a minute. And they wanted to squash me. And, I told them no. I told them no because at the time in the NWA, if you were looking at the NWA as a whole, the people everyone was talking about were Jack Stane, Rob Conway, and the Empire, period, right? We were one of the top entities within that company. So for me to go out there to be one of the top guys in that company, and I was actually this company's Southern Heavyweight Champion, you know what I mean? To go out there and just get demolished by Jax, it made absolutely no sense to me. So I pleaded my case. I told him, I'm not going to do that. So either we figure this out or you can take me out of the match, whatever needs to be done. So eventually, and, they all agreed, and we went out there, and me and Jax had a really, really good match. Okay, and, I watched a lot of Jack Stane's NWA title matches, and I think that mine was one of the better ones he had. So, to me, and at the end of the night, when he speared me, and he did beat me, but it was after a 15-minute match. After he speared me and beat me, everyone was on their feet. So, I mean, to me, I was right in that scenario. You know what I mean? Because the alternate to that would have been, to me, would have hurt everyone's business all the way around. It would have hurt the company's business for their champion, me, to get beat like that. It would hurt me. It would hurt the Empire. It wouldn't help Jax, because if I'm able to be beaten in a minute, then how does that help him, right? So to me, it all culminated, and it all worked. You got something you want to say about that? Okay,
well, yeah, and I do want to make sure we do have a few minutes. I want to make sure we get get another question in if we can. You described two scenarios there, and I wanted to, in my mind, when you described the first about appearing to win and then having the ref kind of restart or whatever the situation, what you had in mind is, if I was coming from the viewpoint of the NWA management on this, would you say that events like the forming of the ECW World Championship, and there are others,
Yeah.
to where the NWA has been used. Do you think that something like that might be something that stays in their mind
Absolutely.
and they would be concerned?
Anytime you're, and like we talked about, the higher you get up in professional wrestling, the more politics there are. So NWA World's Heavyweight title, everybody's kind of gunning for whatever. So the likelihood of them trying to double cross you and do something is very high. I completely understand that. From their standpoint, if I'd been in the NWA office, I would have said the exact same thing. You understand? But me personally, the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, I felt like I had built a relationship with these guys already. Hey, listen, I'm one of the boys. I'm not going to do that to you. Right. Could you give me this rub? But then Rob ended up giving me, he let me, I actually had Conway pinned for a 5 count.
Okay.
In the match. So I still got a little bit of the rub.
All right.
But not the one I wanted. Does that make sense?
Sure.
But he still did business the best he could.
Okay. Well, that's that further explanation helps me out a little bit. Now, on the second situation, I have to keep in mind that I'm essentially a random fat guy from the audience. That is my viewpoint on things, and that's
I'm a random fat guy in the ring.
That's the way I look at things. But I will admit, if I have purchased a ticket to an event and I get the opportunity to see an NWA World Championship match, Worlds, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Be grammatically correct is important. And what I would think is if the situation you first described laid out, where you're defeated in less than a minute, just on the perspective of what you're doing to a member of the audience, hey, I may have bought my ticket specifically to see the NWA World's Champion perform. And then I go out there and see a minute or less, however they intended for it to go. Would you not, even setting aside the backstage issues?
Yeah.
How would you feel?
Yeah, you're right. If same thing, if I was a fan, I bought my ticket specifically to see an NWA World's Heavyweight title match, and it was a 1-minute squash, I'd be upset. The other thing, too, was this was a television thing, too. So, they had actually built up they were going to build up 3 or 4 weeks of television to me getting squashed, which made no sense, too. So, but once, you know what I mean? So, once I started cutting promos and, we started doing it, and I think those 3 or 4 weeks were really, really good leading up into that title match with Jax. And, yeah, like I said, the proof's in the pudding. The people were on their feet at the end of the night. And I think that was a much better way to send them home than me getting beat in a minute. Right.
And I do. I just wanted to get in my vote for, hey, when backstage politics, I understand it's a real thing. In any business, it's a real thing. But let's not forget the folks who actually bought tickets out here. And
yeah.
I want to speak up, my people here. And really, I want to get into this other question. This is another very philosophical question. The question was asked by one of the viewers. If, hypothetically, you were put in charge of the WWE 205 Live program, how would you handle it? Kind of a fantasy booking kind of idea. Mm-hmm. How would you do to kind of make it more compelling and make it the best it could be?
So, with 205 Live, basically I would strip everything away, and it would be the best wrestling hour on television. You understand? It would concentrate so much on the in-ring product as far as the athleticism and the actual professional wrestling and stuff like that can go, because cruiserweights have a lot more leeway in a lot of stuff. You understand? So, think Dynamite Kid, Tiger Mask. You know what I mean? Think, Ray and Eddie. Things like that. Those things that are really synonymous with a 205 Live-esque, performance. So I would have that, obviously, as the focal point of it, that, hey, you're going to see some damn good matches every week you turn in, right? And we have a crew of guys that can do it, I would also I'd probably have one heel that just didn't fit for some reason. You know what I mean? Some heel that maybe he's actually a heavyweight, but he's trying to be a cruiserweight, right? And he keeps lying about his weight and things like that. And so there's some kind of entertainment value to that. Then obviously I would probably have some kind of valet situation, where because obviously wrestling's always going to be on the marquee, so we want to feature that. But then we're going to sprinkle in all this other stuff to keep it interesting television wise. So for me, it would be, I would really concentrate on the in-ring product. I would still have a few, entertaining wrestling things in it, but for the most part, it would be a hard-hitting cruiserweight, let's change the game kind of thing.
Okay, so really, in the question we brought up earlier about ring work versus character or entertainment value, so to speak, it's what you're describing to me sounds like a balance of both. Because now a cruiserweight, their division is kind of, famous for the in-ring work. That is their calling card. I'm a fan of it myself. But doing that to the exclusion of the character or, I'll say, dramatic aspects of it. So you're saying you got to do both.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole goal is to have both. The goal is to be entertaining and be charismatic and be this larger-than-life thing, and then go in the ring and still be able to balls to the walls, make it happen for 20, 30 minutes. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I've always prided myself on. Is I could do both. If you want me to go out there and talk for 20 minutes, I can do that. If you want me to go out there and wrestle for 30, I can do that too. So what I'm talking about with the 205 Live stuff is obviously – you have to I look at everyone and everything like, what is the best way to get this over? What is the best blueprint I can use to get this over, right? So obviously the cruiserweights aren't going to have The Rock. They're not going to have Stone Cold Steve Austin. They're not going to have The Undertaker. You know what I mean? So why would I try to focus on that? Let's focus on the fact that they are athletic, that they do know wrestling, and let's showcase that and see how people go with it. Like a Chad Gable. I love Chad Gable. I think he should be an intercontinental type guy. I mean, imagine him having weekly intercontinental title matches, like that, where he's going out there and as the underdog, make him an underdog babyface and, things like that. So he would be perfect for the 205 Live stuff too. But, yeah, I mean, it's always the goal to have both, but at the end of the day, you have to focus on what's the best way to get this guy over.
All right. Well, I know our time is approaching an end. We're getting near, but one of the other things is these questions were, and I'm going to take us in a little bit different direction, if you don't mind. These questions were, came through Facebook. And as I was perusing your Facebook page, one of the things that stuck out is you had a posting listed in which you offered an open training session here at the Herb Welch WrestlePlex. You mentioned that you invited anyone, and I believe you did it 2 weeks in a row, if I understand it correctly. And you only had one person take you up on it. Would you like to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Like last week, I just kind of got in my head. Hey, listen, let's have an open training. You know what I mean? Because I'm tough on the wrestling business, and everyone knows that. Like I don't like a lot of things that are going on in professional wrestling. I sure as hell don't like a lot of things that are going on in our own area. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of garbage wrestling. There's a lot of garbage wrestlers, and, it sticks out like a sore thumb, but we all get painted with that same brush. You understand? So, okay, here's my opportunity to try to help the business in my area as a whole. Whether you work for me or not, come to a training session, and I'll try to help you. Not a bad thing. I mean, not to brag too much, but I am a former 3-time NWA National Heavyweight Champion. I have ran my own company for, several years. I promoted over 700 shows. I mean, I think I know a little bit about professional wrestling. So we have like I said, I got it in my head and I posted about it. And that night we didn't have anybody. The first night we didn't have anybody because it was short notice. And that's what I said. I went back on Facebook and said, hey, listen, I know this is short notice. I know, but here we go. 1 week from tonight, guys. 1 week from tonight, we're going to have another open training session. And I want, anybody and everybody to come out if they can, right? And I plugged it all week. And I had guys from all different states plugging it. And even people in our area. I mean, it became, people were sharing it. So I know people saw it. You understand? Or people were at least talking about it because I had people ask me about it. But sure enough, we come to Wednesday and I have 3 or 4 of my trainees that are always there, right? And then I have one kid show up, and like I said on the Facebook Live thing, of the one kid in this area, he's probably better than 90% of everyone else anyway. So he didn't necessarily need the work, but he fucking still came and wanted to get better. So, and I think we taught him some stuff, Wednesday that he's going to be able to apply to what he's doing. It's just really disheartening when here I am. I'm making an effort because I have a reputation of being grumpy Greg. Like, if you go work for Greg Anthony, he's gonna tell you you're doing everything wrong, and that's not necessarily the case. But yeah, I'm gonna tell you when you do something wrong, but I'm doing it to make you better. Because guess what? Someone told me when I did it wrong, or I had to find out for myself I was doing it wrong and change it. Either way. So I'm at least cutting some of the time out for you. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was really disheartening that only one person showed up. With so many guys in this area that need work, and I've seen it through their quote-unquote highlight reels that are not highlights at all. There's a lot of people that needed work, and no one took advantage of it.
All right, how are we?
We are over 30 minutes, but if you got one more little thing we can do.
Well, I suppose just kind of a backup is one of the things is you posted a quote from Edge. This might be just kind of a sum up. Mm-hmm. Where a lot of people are, view you in a negative way because of the way you criticize mistakes that you see. But Edge, and you posted his quote, laid out a quote about, when someone receives a German suplex. Would you like to just kind of use that?
And that's something I've said for years too, is I watch guys on national television do a superplex and pop up like it's no big deal. If you've ever taken a superplex, that shit hurts. And that's what Edge was saying. German suplexes hurt. And when guys take them and they come up all fired up like it didn't hurt. And that's what I'm saying. Not only are they not selling, they're not selling for what it really is. You understand? So that means they're deselling certain things. Stuff hurts, you know what I mean? And when something hurts, it needs to be sold, you know what I mean? Everything needs to be sold in professional wrestling. But Edge had said, German suplexes suck and you should treat them like they suck, because to me, there's no point in doing anything if it's not sold. You understand? That's the whole point of our business. If we're trying to indicate to people that we're in a fight and this thing, and they're not, how can they know that if we're not in pain or we're not in jeopardy? You understand? It always has to be something like that.
All right. Well, I do believe we have safely gone over our limit.
We've went over just a tad. Like I said, we will never be directly on 30 minutes. We will always be a little over, probably. So for the Golden Boy Greg Anthony and my co-host, the Lone Musketeer, Mark Tipton, thank you and goodbye.